Today, I'm ranking weapon and tool runes from best to worst and showing you which ones you should absolutely never use. To start this video off, I have the tier maker put into the top left of the screen, and I'll have each rune thrown into different tiers from what I believe is the best and worst. I also want to start off with the worst and scale our way up because I want you guys to know exactly which runes you shouldn't use on any weapons or tools, and then get to the ones that are absolutely necessary in every scenario. Now, the first rune I'm throwing into the F tier is actually going to be Storm Purification. And the reason why I'm throwing this down there is because this rune works in a way where when you kill an enemy when you're inside of the storm, you'll actually gain a little bit of time back. If you guys didn't know, if you run out of time while inside of the storm, it'll eventually kick you out of the storm and you have to go back in and navigate your way through here. The issue with Storm Purification is that when you kill an enemy, you'll gain 5 seconds. But if you just eat a storm fruit, you'll gain 6 seconds. And if you eat a storm fruit nectar, you'll gain even more time than that. On top of eating both of those things, you can also add on any type of charm when it comes to the storm charms, whether that is the blue rarity or the gold rarity, and gain even more time when you're inside of the storm. So having the ability to kill enemies to gain time really just doesn't seem worth it at all. Some people are going to hate me for saying this one, I think, but Force is also going to be thrown into the F tier. The reason why I'm throwing this in here is because it doesn't actually do anything. Maybe I'm using the rune wrong or I'm not pairing it with the right gems, but using Force would mean that you actually get decent knockback. But the way that this works is nobody gets knocked back, or at least when I was fighting this bear, it did absolutely nothing. Another F tier rune is actually going to be the Health rune, and that's simply because when you kill an enemy, you do have a chance to get some sort of food item back. The problem with this is really two things. Number one, you only have a chance to get a food item back. It's not guaranteed every single time that you kill an enemy, where at that point it might be a little bit overpowered, but you also do have villagers that can make you an infinite amount of food just by throwing them on a food job and collecting it every few hours. So because of that, I don't see any reason to put health charms onto any of your weapons. I almost can't believe that this was added into LEGO Fortnite Odyssey, and I would also not believe that anybody even uses this. The Illuminator charm was actually put into a rune, which allows you to actually throw it onto your weapons. Now, this is completely useless. Not only do you have an Illuminator charm, which is extremely easy to get, but there's also nothing else that you could put into your charm section that would make having an Illuminator on your weapon actually worth it. Not only that, but you actually see that the light from the Illuminator on your weapon isn't as bright as the Illuminator charm. And when you take a look at this when it's on your weapon, and then when you actually don't even have your weapon in your inventory, the brightness really isn't that much different. So whether you're using this on a tool or a weapon, it is absolutely completely pointless. Another controversial rune being thrown into the F tier is Berserk. In the most recent LEGO Fortnite Odyssey update, we did get changes to our speed as well as our jumping. You also see that when it comes to Berserk, we're jumping like we're actually on the moon. There's just less gravity when we use an attack and try to jump. The problem is that this isn't really useful at all. I don't think that there's really any reason why we would need this much jump or this much speed when it comes to attacking anything in the game. Because of that, and because of the recent update that gave us boosts in these areas anyway, I have to say that this is a complete waste of essence and shouldn't be used on any of our weapons. The last rune we're putting into our F tier is going to be Undead Bane. This rune works where you do additional damage to any enemies that are built out of bones, and that's all that they do extra damage to. So unless you're fighting some of these bone wolves, it is completely useless to use. When you're using that rune and you're fighting, let's say, Arctic wolves, it doesn't do additional damage. So it's completely pointless to use unless you're fighting skeletons, which you don't need Undead Bane to fight skeletons. Now, B tier starts off again. Controversial, but I think that this will make sense to a lot of you guys. I'm throwing zapping tier 3 into the B spot, and the reason behind this is because of how weak it is when you compare it to zapping 4. The difference between these is actually pretty large. When it comes to zapping 3, the effect only actually happens when you kill an enemy, and that effect is that when you kill somebody, you'll actually do damage to 3 additional enemies around them. When it comes to using zapping 4, it's actually a lot different. This will do damage to 4 enemies around them, and it'll do it every single time that you actually hit something. So as long as you actually hit an arrow on an enemy or you hit your sword on an enemy, it'll not only do damage to them, but 4 additional enemies, where zapping 3 will only do damage to 1 player until you actually kill them. So for that reason, and because of how different these are as far as which one is better than the other, I have to separate them by a pretty large margin. I definitely recommend only using zapping tier 4 if you guys can defeat the Storm King, which is honestly not that difficult. Pretty slept on rune is actually going to be last chance, which is why I'm not putting this into the F tier, but I am going to place it into B tier. It's actually a pretty good rune as far as the damage that it can put out, but the issue with it is that it only works when your item is actually going to break. So if you're using a crossbow, it could do very good damage, but it only works for a few shots, and then that crossbow breaks and you don't have it anymore. For myself personally, I want a rune that's going to always work and consistently put in damage if that's what I'm using it for. I don't want something that only works when something's about to break. Destruction is good. It's not great, and it's not the best, nor is it overpowered anymore, but this rune was once an S tier. I'm now throwing it down into B. I still think that it's something that you should throw on all of your axes and pickaxes if you're not using the mythic, but outside of that, this rune has been nerfed time and time again. It used to do 40% of the time where the destruction would kick in. That was nerfed down to 10%. It used to do extra damage when it came to fighting the Storm King weak points or the respawners, and that got nerfed or patched, and that no longer works. So because of that, I actually did lower this down to just the B tier. It would be an A if it was still at 40%. It would be at S if it actually destroyed the Storm King weak points, but I think that B tier is a good spot. The first entry into A tier is going to be Lifesteal. Now, I prefer when this is actually partnered up with Zapping 4. Now, the reason why I mentioned that is because you get about 1 heart every time with Lifesteal when you get a kill. Using Lifesteal and Zapping 4 means that you have times where you could gain up to 3 to 4 hearts at a time, as long as it zaps more than 1 enemy. Now, this is really good when it comes to fighting mobs or fighting against the Storm King, because you're going to constantly be gaining hearts. You don't have to worry about eating foods nearly as much, and even when you're clearing out dungeons, you have this, it works extremely well. So because of that, I'm going to throw this on A tier, but if you only have Zapping 3, I don't know how worth it this is. Now, after taking a look at my tier list, this could honestly go up to S tier, but we're going to throw Luck into the A tier. The only reason I'm not throwing it into S tier is because obviously with Luck, that means there's a chance to it, and I like things that work every single time. Nonetheless, Luck works not only when you guys are fighting enemies, but it also works when it comes to farming materials. When it comes to fighting the brand new Frostland brutes with this new glitch, you can actually use Luck to try to get yourself 2 brute scales. When it comes to knocking down trees or breaking rocks, you can get double the materials by using Luck. So the chance is actually pretty good, which is why I have Luck here in tier A, but if they did make it a little bit better with more frequent drops of getting double, I definitely would put this in S tier. Undead Bane is going into A tier, but when it comes to weapons, you pretty much want this on all of them unless you aren't playing with all of the brand new content. I'm putting this up into A tier where you had Undead Bane down in F because the new Storm rune is actually perfect when it comes to fighting the Storm King and clearing out dungeons. It's just extremely relevant right now when fighting enemies because it does more damage to every single one of them. And And to wrap this up, I'm going to throw durability into A tier and damage into S tier. The reason why I have the durability down in A tier is because you do already have a ton of durability when it comes to rifting items, but I do think that it's still a very solid choice to throw on to anything that you have. Damage should go on everything, whether that's weapons and tools. Doing more damage to things is always going to be better, so that'll remain in S tier for probably ever. When it comes to weapons, I think by far the best choices is going to be zapping, lifesteal, damage, or stormbane, and obviously you can change out lifesteal for anything that's inside of the A tier. I think that you could throw durability on there, or you could even throw luck on there if you guys are just trying to get extra materials from enemies. I think that when it comes to using any of your tools, it's going to be slightly different. You still want to use damage and durability as well as luck and destruction. Outside of those 4 runes, I really don't think that there's anything that's going to work too well on any of those items. I'm not really in the business of wasting runes or wasting essence. When it comes to things, I want to make sure I'm getting the best out of every single thing that I use. So I would stick with destruction, damage, durability on luck, and any one of my tools. Comment down below what runes you guys are running on all of your weapons and tools, and which ones you agreed or disagreed with me on. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, guys, this was Crafty, and I'm out. Peace. Help me reach 50,000 subscribers by pressing that sub button in the top right. And if you guys haven't already, check out that video in the top left. YouTube thinks that you'll like it a lot. Peace.